Hey, what is poppin'? It's your boy John from China, aka CPJ, the beat from the music. So a lot of people have been asking me to do a tutorial on music production, but here's the thing. I'm also an amateur as well as all of you guys. I don't feel too comfortable making this kind of video because I don't think that I'm that good to teach other people how to make music. But what I can do is that I can share some of my thoughts and experience of how I go through the whole process of music production. Today I'm gonna share my thought on how to design a drum pattern. We're gonna be including some of the most popular music production categories such as R&B, such as trap and future bass. I'll be using Logic Pro X throughout the whole process, and I'll show you one step at a time how to design the drum pattern within the kind that I just mentioned above. Now let's get into it. So we're gonna start with probably one of the most popular kind of music, which is trap. But first of all, I'm gonna recommend this really nice application. Its name is Splice. It's just a really nice sample pack application. There are tons of samples that you can find in this application to use in your project. But me personally, I think it's just not really music production if you're using a tons of sample in your track. That's just what I think. I don't really use much sample in my project, and I highly suggest you do not get used to put tons of sample in your track. That really jeopardizes the whole process of actually learning music production. Move back to the subject. Here, I have a really nice sample that I found on Splice. It's a trap loop. Let me show you guys first. Most of the trap beats BPM is going to be between 140 to 160. For this one, I set it up to 160, as all of you can see. And it's a half tempo filling. So, which means out of the snare, it's going to be placed on the third beat of each bars. So you just got to copy paste every snare on third beat of each bars. And then between them, there is a 1 beat gap between them. Put them all together, it's going to be like this. For the kick, you need a really heavy kick for the trap beat. Trap, it's always about people bouncing with it, so you need a really heavy one. So I always starting off the kick with only one kick. You need to leave some of the space for the snare. You don't want to overlap them too much. So I leave some space in between the second kick and the first kick so that the snare can fill in. And then in between each 2 bars, I put some fills up here to make it sound more interesting. So the whole thing now sounds like this. And then move right into the hi-hat. The hi-hat is probably one of the most important things to carefully design when you're designing a drum pattern for the trap beat. But I'm gonna walk you through a little bit more with detail. So what I did was that I just put the hi-hat in with a semi-quaver. Leave a gap between each of them, basically. In another word, easier way to say it. And then just copy paste. You want to make it like more melodic, you want to make it more interesting. There are a lot of tune changing when you're designing a hi-hat for the trap beat. So you got to think about how to design the pattern for it. You want to make it more bouncy, you want to make it more interesting. Here, before another snare, here's where the snares falls. Remember that? So before that, I'm going to take this out, and then I'm going to shorten this one, and then copy paste. So there is a fast rolling before the second snare. And then take that one out because you want a gap between the fast roll for the hi-hat. And then after that, I move to changing the tune for it. And then just move this one up, move this one up. And then here, it's more like velocity changing. Some of them is gonna hit really hard, some of them is gonna hit really soft. Based on the tune that it has. Basically, that's what I do. After doing that, now the hi-hat is gonna be sound like this. Now putting all of them together, let's take a listen to it. And here's the second example that I have for the R&B type of track. The tempo for the R&B beat is always going to be in between 80 to like 120-ish. This one, I set it up to like 82. Drum pattern for R&B, it's kind of similar to the trap beat, but here's the thing. You don't want an R&B type of track to be too heavy as to how the trap beat was going. You want people to kind of, you know, wave with it. You don't want them to bounce with it because it's R&B. You want people to chill. So don't make everything too heavy. Another thing, when you're designing a drum pattern for the R&B type of track, it's also a half tempo track. So now you gotta think, oh, I'm gonna put every snare on the third beat of each bars. Here is the snare that I found for an R&B. It's more of a finger snap with a lot of reverb, which is really chill. And then move right into the kick. It's a really easy pattern here that I got. So starting off with only one kick and then place 3 kicks up here with a little swing. Here is how it sounds like. Do a little fills in between like every 4 or 8 bars. And then you also need a cymbal. And did you hear like how the sound was like dragging all the way to the end of each bars? And also an open hi-hat on every half tempo of the last beat of each bars. And adding up with the loop now, that sounds like this. Now move right into future bass. Here's the loop that I found on the application that I was telling you guys. The drum pattern for future bass is going to be way more complicated for any other kind that I was telling you guys. So for the future bass type of drum pattern, you want to make it as fancy as possible. You wanted to make it interesting. And you always need some texture within the sample that you found or the sample that you record in your house or anywhere. I'm just going to start off with the kick and then the snare. For the kick, I leave tons of space in between each kick. It's a really easy pattern. So it's the same thing, just place the snare on every third beat of each bar. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 1, 2, 3. After that, I place tons of other sound in between the gap of the kick and the snare. And this one right here, I don't know what it is, but it has this really chill vibe that I like. So I just take it in. And then a texture right here, like twisting some toys, I guess. Another texture, like toy-ish kind of sound. And then putting all of them together, and now it sounds like this. I actually like this loop right here. I think I'm gonna keep going with it. I don't know, but here is how it sounds like right now. Last but not the least, we're moving to dubstep. For a dubstep, the BPM is always going to be between 140 to 160. Here is a dubstep sample that I found online. And then for dubstep, it's always a halftime feeling as well. Put the snare on the third beat of each bars. What you need is a super heavy kick and a snare and 2 different samples. The kick for the dubstep is way less syncopated comparing with the R&B and the trap type of music. So for the snare and the kick is really easy. It's just do, da, do, da. And here's how it sounds like. And here, of course, I put some fills up here after like every 4 bars or 8 bars. At the beginning of each, every 4 bars or 8 bars, you need an open hi-hat to start it off. And then just place the hi-hat on each beat. So right now, putting them all together, it's gonna be sounding like this. So that was basically how I designed the whole drum pattern. I hope that my video is actually helping you out to produce your own track or even inspire you with your own project. Like I said, I'm also an amateur. I'm learning as well as all of you guys are. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click the little bell under there, and I'll see you in the next video.